Welcome to the Disney Parks Podcast, your Disney infotainment podcast. Keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast at all times and get ready for the Disney Parks Podcast.
Hey, we have a great show for you. We have an interview with a travel expert, Lyn Mettler. She's a seasoned entrepreneur, a travel journalist for publications like U.S. News and World Report, The Today Show, USA Today. I used to love reading that newspaper when I traveled. I don't even know if they make it anymore. Yep. Reader's Digest. So after struggling to afford family vacations, Lyn discovered travel rewards and created a simple system for allowing her family to travel 6 times a year to destinations in the U.S., Caribbean, Europe, and probably much more. Her system has also helped hundreds of other families travel free. Please welcome Lyn to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. USA Today, Marriott Courtyard used to throw that in front of your door every morning. You grab that, you make your cup of coffee, sat down and figured out what hell happened last night while you were at work.
Yes, and I write for the online part, so
Right.
I don't think mine has ever shown up in a print, but maybe it has, and I don't know.
Yeah. You don't know, right? So, we ask everybody, how did your, journey with Disney begin? I'm sure you've also been to Disney World or Disneyland as well. Yes, I hope.
Yeah, oh yes. We're Disney fans, and so for me, I think my journey, my love of Disney, we'll say, started. My husband and I honeymooned at Disney World because
Oh,
he
wow.
had grown up going to Disney World every year, almost with his family, from Indiana to Orlando, and so he really had a love for it. And I hadn't been; I'd been, once or twice as a little kid, but
Right.
so kind of learning it through him. He knew how to get everywhere in the parks and all the shortcuts, and
Yeah.
like experiencing that with him. And then, and so I really grew to love it. And that was the main trip I would say we took before we could really afford to travel very much, because it
Right.
was drivable for us. And so we might
Yeah.
every couple years, we loved it so much, try to get down there. But then once we figured out how to fly for free, we were able to expand beyond. But we generally have done like Disney World one year, Disneyland the other year. And it did enable us to go to Disneyland for the first time,
Yeah.
which was awesome. And we did Disneyland Paris last summer. So,
Oh, wow. What did you think
yeah.
of Disneyland Paris compared to the
Well,
domestic parks?
yeah, I mean, I'm glad I saw it, because
Mhm.
it's just, if you love Disney, you have to see it. But
Sure.
on the whole, I thought, it doesn't really compare to Disney World or Disneyland that we have here in the US. I enjoyed seeing how different some of the rides were, like their
Yeah.
take on the Haunted Mansion and,
Mhm.
different things like that. Small World was good there, and the castle is beautiful. But on the whole, it's just not as, well kept or as neat as our parks here in the US.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a one-time thing, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that a lot from people that go to Paris, less from people that go to Tokyo. Everybody that goes to Tokyo says that is the best park out of all of them, hands down.
Well, I just had a member who had just posted in our community. She'd been to Disneyland Tokyo, so I was asking her all the questions, and she had a rave review of it as well, like you're saying.
Yeah. We've been doing the show for a long time, but Paris was primarily owned by a Parisian company, but now I think Disney is majority owner in that, so it may get a little bit better over the years. Oriental Land Company owns the Tokyo park, and they are willing and able to throw whatever kind of money they need to make it the best out of the best.
Yeah, Disneyland Paris is just, I think it's just aging, and it's not as clean and as well kept and that kind of thing as you expect Disney to be.
Right. So how did you get started with the concept of travel for free? How did that come about for you and your family? You kind of led a little into it in telling your story, but how did that all come about for you?
Yeah, as you said, I've been a longtime travel writer. And so someone pitched me an idea one day to write an article about this couple that was
Hmm.
flying for free all over the world. And they were collecting miles not by
Hmm.
paying for flights.
Hmm.
And that was what got my attention because my dad always flew for business. I just
Hmm.
thought you earned frequent flyer miles by
Right.
flying a lot, which
Right.
is what makes sense, right?
Sure.
But it turns out that there's so many other ways and better ways, really, to earn frequent flyer miles, and that's
Right.
kind of what they had figured out. And once I delved into what they were doing, I started experimenting with it myself. And over time, I just ended up with this system that worked really well for my family of four
Hmm.
to fly again around the US. Then we branched out to the Caribbean, and then we did Europe. And to do it in a pretty easy way. Like, I'm still amazed to this day at how easy it can be. And I think a lot of people who have dipped their toes into miles and
Right.
points get a lot of advice about opening tons of cards, and it can become overwhelming very quickly. So I try to bring to the table a simple approach to do this
Mm.
for your whole family. Now, you're not going to be flying first class over to Disneyland Paris, but we can get you there on miles, and it'll be
Right.
a comfortable experience.
Yeah. Yeah. S you know, so what is changing at Southwest? And, interesting, like, I really, up until, like, 2 years ago, really did not fly Southwest at all. Uh, I live in Orlando, and I was always typically going to New Jersey. And yes, they do fly to New Jersey, but it wasn't like JetBlue was the easiest way and cheapest way for me to get there. But my daughter lives in Pittsburgh, and now from Orlando to Pittsburgh, they have a couple nonstops, and Southwest has now become, oh, let's fly Southwest. So, what is changing at Southwest that we need to be aware of now?
Yeah, and I mean, what's so great about flying Southwest is compared to any other airline, you can pay fewer miles for every flight that you take
Hmm.
with them. And that allows you to take more flights for free. So that's how I'm able to take four people 6 times a year on
Wow.
flights, is because within the US and where they fly, they do fly to some Caribbean destinations,
Hmm.
I focus on them, so I really stretch my points, and then maybe every other year or so we jaunt to Europe, and then that takes more points, but we have it because we've conserved so many with how we fly Southwest. And they do offer a companion pass, which,
Hmm.
unlike Delta or Alaska, is not just
Hmm.
a one-time pass. It allows you, if you can earn it, to bring someone with you for free on every flight you take with them while you have that pass. It could be
Right.
every day of the year if you wanted. And so that's a huge value right there. You never pay points or dollars, of course, for that person. And so that
Wow.
stretches your points a lot further when one of you pays nothing. And they're just great to deal with for the most part. I can't say 100% of the time, but
Hmm.
compared to like Frontier is always the
Yeah.
one I use as my bad example. They
Hmm.
are delightful, and if they mess up, they try to make up for it.
Right.
So Southwest is making a lot of changes coming in this next year. And one thing they've addressed is the no assigned seats policy. So if you've ever
Which I
flown
found very
Southwest,
weird. I found
and
very,
yes,
very weird.
right,
Like, you go, "Wait, I don't have a seat?"
it is jarring if you're not used to it.
Yeah, yeah,
But it turns out that is the fastest way to board a plane.
yeah.
They board a plane faster than any other airline. And so that has steered a lot of people away from
Mhm,
flying Southwest. Now, those of us, like, I've been flying Southwest since 2015,
mhm,
5 or 6 times a year. I know how to do it. It's not a problem. Um, but they are going to go to assigned seats because they
yeah.
said they did a survey where 80 some percent of people who didn't fly Southwest have cited that as their reason. And I would agree. I hear that a lot.
Yeah. Do you think when they implement that will be a price tier? Like, hey, if you want to pick your seat and get an assigned seat, it's, I don't know, $10, $20 extra. Or, for us that, maybe just, you know, okay with the corral type methodology of getting on the plane, it might be cheaper. Do you think they'll go to a tiered pricing for that? Because they really haven't said anything about how it's going to work.
Well,
What do you think
they've
as a
said a
travel
little
expert?
bit. They haven't
Hmm.
said it in full, like, they haven't fully
Yeah.
explained, but what they have said is, like, they have different fare types, and
Right.
generally, to this point in time, I always recommend booking their cheapest wanna-get-away fare.
Okay.
So what they have said is the wanna-get-away fare will not have a seat selection,
Okay.
and you're gonna want to have a seat selection, I think, because that's gonna be worse than no assigned seat, because they're going to leave the middle seats, and the back of the plane are going to be the ones that people aren't
Hmm.
going to pick, and you're going to
Sure.
be relegated to whichever one of those they assign you, and not with whoever you're flying with. And that's,
Right.
I have a lot of families, so they want to know they're going to be sitting with their kids, and of course. So
Yeah.
I think you're going to definitely want to have a seat selection, and so that's going to come with the next highest fare, which is Wanna Get Away Plus,
Hmm.
and that'll at least get you to choose your seat. You might not get premium seat selection, but you can at least choose to sit with your family.
Hmm.
And that's kind of how the seat selection we were used to flying anyway.
Right.
They are going to be adding a third of the plane will become extra legroom seats.
Oh, wow.
So I think 34 to 35 inches of pitch, which is, I think, between the
Back in the,
headrest of the
yeah.
two seats, right?
Yep.
So you would probably could pay more to upgrade to that, or one of their higher fares is going to grant you that. Also, if you have the highest status with Southwest, you'll
Mm.
get to pick an extra legroom seat. So I think that's a concern I see on my end. So my husband is tall. We've been flying Southwest for 9-10 years, and so it is always nerve wracking for him. He likes to get in the emergency row because that's really your only option on a Southwest plane. All the
Sure.
seats are the same.
Yep.
Though
Yeah.
they do have pretty good leg room for standard seating compared to other airlines. But so I think I know he's going to be relieved to have the option to choose an extra leg room seat and not leave it up to, like, we've literally been the first person on the plane before and thought, well, for sure he's going to get a emergency row seat.
Hmm.
And there were people on the flight ahead that weren't getting off, and they
Oh.
just all moved to the emergency row. So there's really no way to guarantee that.
Right.
Yeah, unless you
Yeah.
have secured it ahead of time. So I think that's one of their major changes they're making, that
Yeah.
I personally think is a positive.
I used to, and I did in the past, get the flight, pay for the flight that you were guaranteed the A1 to A15 boarding group, only because I wanted to be able to get on and get the seat I wanted, not, just, and sit next to my, my girlfriend was traveling with me. And also I was reading that you got more points. I was like, oh, well, this will, get me more points faster, and then I can have a better status and then drop paying this extra price. Was that a good strategy, or probably not?
Well, so I don't ever really recommend paying for a Southwest flight in cash, because our strategy to earn points is not by buying flights. It's
Yeah.
by earning a Southwest companion pass, which nets you 135,000 points that you can then use to book yourself and add your companion for free, or whoever else is in your family that's not your companion.
Right.
And then using a flexible travel credit card, not
Okay.
a wallet full, but one or two.
Yeah.
You don't have to be opening them all the time, and just putting your day-to-day expenses on a flexible card whose points transfer over to Southwest. It's better than using a Southwest card, because Southwest cards generally earn you 1 point per dollar on most things, unless you're buying flights with them, which we're not having you do.
Yeah.
And they're not flexible. So if you ended up with, I don't know how, but I have people that have, like hundreds of thousands of Southwest points. Well, they
Right.
can't do anything else with those points except book a Southwest flight. And if you have flexible points, you could use those to book a free hotel. You could use them to book a flight to Europe. You could book a car rental. There's other things you can do with them. And once you get on my system, you do generally start having enough points to not only fly Southwest, but start to book some free hotels, and then, or work toward that trip to Europe, kind of a thing.
Right. Do you have recommended, like, what should, if I'm looking for a credit card that's going to do this for me, what are your recommended, how do I go about, doing the research and saying, oh, are they transferable? Are there blackout dates, or things like that?
Right.
What are some of the things I might be looking for if I want to shop for
And
a
that's
new
like
credit
another
card?
reason why Southwest is great is they don't have blackout dates ever.
Hmm.
So you can book any flight, anytime.
Hmm.
It might cost you more points to do it, but it's available.
Yeah.
And you can change your flight. You can cancel your flight at
Right.
any time with no penalty.
Yeah.
And so when you're booking them in points, which is what I always recommend doing, you
Hmm.
could cancel a flight the night before and all your points just dump right back into your account. And
Wow.
there's a lot of tricks and hacks we play to work that points price down. Like a big
Yeah.
one you can do on Southwest anytime is if I book a flight yesterday for 7,500 points and today it's 5,000 points,
Hmm.
I can make a change and get 2,500 points put back in my account. And
Right.
so if you check that regularly, we save tens of thousands of points just that doing that one thing. And so you over time you're working that price down from what you originally paid. But when it comes to travel cards, to earn the Southwest Companion Pass, the quickest and easiest
Hmm.
way to do that is to get 2 Southwest cards, meet the minimum spend on each,
Hmm.
earn the big bonus on each.
Hmm.
That 9 times out of 10 will get you to 135,000 points. And so that might require that between those 2 cards, you spend a total of, say, $4,000 to $6,000.
Hmm.
And then boom, you have a companion pass that's good from the time you earn it till the end of the following year. So if I earn it in January, it's going to be good through the end of, like if I earn it January 2025, it's going to
Right.
be good through December 2026. So now I've
Okay.
got 135,000 points that I can use to book flights. I got one person flying free with me always.
Right.
And then my next strategy is always to move people to a flexible card for their spending. So you
Okay.
just need those Southwest cards to get that companion pass, and then you set them aside. And so I like the Chase system
Okay.
because their points transfer over to Southwest,
Hmm.
and you can do a lot of things with their points. So the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the
Right.
Chase Sapphire Reserve. There's a lot of different cards in there that are good. I like the Capital One system.
Okay.
It doesn't transfer to Southwest, but it's very, very flexible in terms of what you can use their points for.
Hmm.
And you can get Disney park tickets and things like that with using their miles.
Right.
Um, and so that's a great system. Other people like other options would be like the Amex system or the City system. Those are not ones that I love, but I would say like look for a flexible card that works well with your chosen airline or your
Right.
favorite hotel chain. And then instead of spending on that hotel chain's card or that airline's card, spend on the flexible one
Hmm.
and then move your points over
Right.
as needed because you're going to have they're flexible and you can earn more.
Right. Um, Besides Southwest, if Southwest is not an option from where I'm flying to or from, do you have other preferred airlines that you would recommend for people?
So, what's another great thing about these flexible cards is they
Hmm.
almost all have their own travel portal where you can
Okay.
use that system's points to book flights on any airline, stays at any hotel for the most
Hmm.
part. And so I like to do that rather than say, like, my second favorite airline would be Delta, but I
Okay.
don't hold a Delta card. I
Right.
don't try to earn Delta miles,
Hmm.
except for easy things like you can connect Delta to Airbnb. So I do that because why not? If I'm
Yeah.
booking an Airbnb, I might as well earn some Delta miles.
Right.
But I don't have a strategy to try to be collecting a whole bunch of Delta miles. Instead, I'm just going to book it with my flexible points.
Hmm.
And then here and there, like I can use some miles I've collected that way to like pay for a bag or
Right.
upgrade myself to the next best class of seating kind of a thing. So, but yet no other airline comes anywhere near Southwest in terms of what you're able to do. Like I was like, most other airlines, you're probably going to be paying 20 to 25,000 points round trip per person.
Right.
On Southwest, we regularly get it down to 5,000 points round trip, 10,000 points round
Hmm.
trip. So
Wow.
you're literally taking 3 to 4 times the number of trips, but you might have to take a connection. Like the kicker there. It
Yeah.
might not be a nonstop flight. It might
Right.
be, but would you be willing to take a connection to fly for free and take a flight you wouldn't take otherwise? That's how
Yeah.
I look at it.
Yeah. And then for hotels, what's the best way to, you know, get a reduced rate or a free room or free nights What's the best strategy to do that? Is that also with the Flex card and the
Yeah, and so
points?
that's a key thing that makes the way I teach it easy is because you're
Okay,
focusing on one system instead of, again, I have to have Hyatt points and Marriott points and Delta miles and Southwest miles, right? Um, so if you do have a preferred system, a preferred hotel chain, and I do have a lot of people like, I don't know, they just always stay in Marriott's for business,
sure.
or they own, Marriott or Hilton Vacation Club or something like that. So then you might want to have a card in that system if you know you're going to
Hmm.
be staying there regularly, because you will get some status benefits and
Sure.
that kind of thing. But yeah, I generally like to use my flexible points to book hotels. Now, the Chase system, for example, will transfer over to Marriott. It'll transfer to IHG, and that's Holiday Inn and
Yep.
Kimpton and Hotel Indigo, and Hyatt are the three transfer partners that they have. But it's not always the best deal to transfer points. Sometimes it's lower points for you to book in their travel portal than it is for you to move the points over to, like, Marriott. It'd be a for sure. They're very, very
Yeah.
expensive in points. And so that they're generally not one I recommend unless you just have a bucket list Marriott that you want to visit, because it's going to cost you so many more points to stay at a Marriott than it would, say, a Hyatt. And you can
Right.
still get the same quality of hotel. It'll just be a different chain.
Yeah.
And you really, to get free nights and that kind of thing, sometimes holding their card will give you that. Like
Hmm.
Hyatt and IHG both give you a free anniversary night if you hold their card. But then you kind of start having to get into status, and that Hyatt is one where you can kind of work toward the status without spending a gazillion dollars. But
Hmm.
the other ones are just you're gonna have to be staying there a lot and paying for rooms, to get yourself to status. Hyatt actually will let you earn room nights towards status booking a points night,
Right.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in back in the 90s, I used to travel every week for work, and I had a Marriott card. I got on a Continental flight every week. I stayed in a Marriott hotel every week, and that loyalty, paid off. I would sit
Yeah.
in first class all the time. I'd be in a Marriott lounge all the time. Uh, you know, um, and even my status at Marriott, I was platinum. If the hotel was booked, I would call the hotel and say, "Listen, I need a room," and they would say, "Well, do you want to invoke your platinum privilege?" And I'd be like, "Yes." And that meant that somebody was getting bumped from the hotel so that I
Oh
could
wow.
stay there. And I mean, travel. I really, and the loyalty back then was great. I mean, Hertz at the airport, we never went to the Hertz place to get the car. They used to pull the cars around to like the baggage area for us, and here, throw us the keys and go, here's the cars. See you later. We'll see you on Friday when you come back. So does that kind of loyalty today pay off? Because I feel like it doesn't. I feel like brand loyalty, like to Marriott or whoever it might be, does not pay dividends anymore. It's about their bottom line, and they just want money. They just want you to book more trips to get those precious points.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it doesn't pay significant dividends
Hmm.
like you're saying. It might give
Yeah.
you a few nicer perks here and there. Now,
Right.
we did have a webinar in my membership program where we had a member who's gotten to Hyatt Globalist, which is their highest, and it does have
Mm.
some nice perks, like you can upgrade to a suite and you can enjoy club level and you get waived
Right.
resort fees, and
Yeah.
they have someone who'll book things for you. So that's nice, but you have to really work toward it. And so my approach to this is really, it's not so much how to get luxury travel perks and all of
Mm.
that. It's more
Right.
about how can I travel more with my family
Yeah.
affordably,
Right.
and for these, because like we couldn't afford to go anywhere other than a driving trip. And I think there's so many families in that situation, or they're just
Hmm.
taking like one big vacation a year and it's breaking the bank when they
Right.
could become a family that's traveling. They're just travel. I say you go from being a vacationer to a traveler because you're just traveling at 4 or 5 times a year. And
Hmm.
then where are we going next? We're going to this national park. We're going to Disney World. We're going to go overseas. We're going to go stay at an all inclusive in the Caribbean. I mean, there's so many
Right.
cool things that you can do. This just opens up the world, I think, to people.
Yeah. Is there a best time to book a trip? Is there a better day of the week? A better, how far in advance should you be doing this? What are there strategies around that?
So Tuesdays and Wednesdays are always the best days to book airfare.
Okay.
And there's something about like over the weekend, people decide their travel plans and then they do their bookings on Monday. And so
Hmm.
you'll see most airline sales on Tuesdays. So
Hmm.
I always recommend particularly when it comes to Southwest, always checking on Tuesdays, try to book
Okay.
on a Tuesday if you can. And then this whole trick of, see if the price has gone down. If you can look every Tuesday and just check that and then rebook it if it has, that'll
Hmm.
save you a ton.
Yeah.
Um, of course, you don't want to get in within 30 days generally of booking a flight. That's when
Right.
everything goes up. But with Southwest, I always just like book the flight when you need it
Hmm.
on a Tuesday if you can, and
Right.
and then inevitably you'll be able to work the price down over time. They'll have a sale that's really good, and then you can rebook and get your points back, or they'll have a discount code, or prices just drop because there's competition. You never know. So with them, there's no harm in going ahead and booking because
Hmm.
you're not locked in. You can even
Right.
cancel that flight if you decide later on this is not something we want to do. And
Yeah.
particularly if you're booking in points, no harm, no foul. They just go right back in your account. So I have a lot of people that are used to. I mean, normally I just booked us flights to Europe to London for spring break, and I'm
Oh
like,
wow. Nice.
okay, like we're locked in on this after
Right.
24 hours. It's not like Southwest, and so that can be a little nerve wracking, but
Yeah.
it's very liberating and less stressful to learn on Southwest. Like, oh, not a big deal if the kids get sick before we're getting ready. We can move dates or we can cancel or.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. This is a little bit of a tech question with that. So, I had read once that you should use your incognito on your browser to be checking for airline prices because if you keep going to Southwest, they know that you're interested and they could present you higher and higher prices. Saying, "Oh, I should have taken it when it was 175. Now it's 190." Is any of that true? I don't know.
I've heard that too. It definitely is not true on Southwest because I've
Okay.
tested that many a time.
Okay.
Sometimes like the price you see online,
Hmm.
like I've had where I've like called them and the price was slightly different that they had on their screen than what I had. And
Okay.
usually it's in my favor. It's like cheaper on their end, but
Oh, sure.
so I think that's possible. The other airlines, maybe, but like I'm always usually looking I'm logged in. So I
Yeah.
feel like if I'm logged in, they know what
Who
I've
you
been
are
looking at
anyway.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have tried not being logged in and checking incognito, and there's no difference. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna just do a 2-second rant. I know the government is trying to take the airlines to task with their nickel and diming for everything
yeah.
on a plane now. Oh, here's your $100 flight. Oh, wait. You want a boarding time? You want a seat? You want to get your luggage? You want to check luggage? Everything is extra, and I really just tell me the price. I don't care what it is. I want to be able to get on the plane, pick a seat, check my bags, at least one. Just tell me what that price is. Don't tell me that it's going to cost me, $300 extra on top of the $100
Right.
cheap ticket. So I hope they can get them to do that. And I just heard on the news the airlines testified that one airline executive, I think he was United, says, "Oh no, we don't look at the figures for baggage fees. Come on, you're a liar. You're looking at those numbers, going, oh, maybe $50 is really not enough. If they're willing to pay that, we should go to like 60 or 75. Come
Yeah.
on, what executive is not looking at the bottom line of how much bags or revenue
Yeah.
is
That
being
makes them
brought
a
into
ton
the
of money
company? Yeah,
for
of
sure.
course, of course.
And this is why we're seeing Southwest charge for assigned seats.
Yeah,
They need to make some money because
yeah,
they have made more revenue than they ever have, but they are not as profitable because their labor costs have risen quite a lot.
yeah.
And so they have been very
And,
upfront
and
about
bags are
saying
free.
their bags are free, which again, that's another wonderful thing about flying.
Yeah,
And I have no affiliation with Southwest. I just like to say that. I just truly think
yeah,
they're the best one to fly. But yeah, that's liberating too to know that. And gosh, when we used to go to Disney, like we would literally pack a whole bag of food
Hmm.
back when there wasn't such a thing as Instacart and,
Yeah.
you could go pick
Right.
up your groceries at Kroger
Yeah.
or whatever,
Hmm.
because it was free. And then we could not have to worry about, spending as much
Hmm.
on food when we were going to Disney. So just having that as an option is so nice.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I mean, so the government is, and they're also stepping in on requiring them
Hmm.
to offer you some kind of compensation if your flight is delayed more than three
Yes.
hours. That's now a government requirement. So that's one thing I'm encouraging everyone to do in 2025 is ask when you are inconvenienced in any way. Ask the airline for. And Southwest is pretty good about this.
Hmm.
Honestly, they become a little more difficult since the government put this requirement in place. They were much better about it before it was mandated. I don't know what the difference is, but make sure you ask, because if you can collect some of those over time, that nets you free flights right there with credits and vouchers that they're giving you. And you're
Hmm.
not going to get them if you don't ask, for sure. And sometimes you have to be persistent. You got to ask, and then you got to follow up. And then if you didn't get it, you got to follow up again.
Yeah.
But I just did that for some flights we had with Southwest this past summer, and I came up with $500, worth of vouchers that we can put all like across my whole family, and I know how to put them together as one. And that's plenty for probably more than one and a half round trips for us.
Yeah. I was last year. I was traveling from Dulles back to Orlando, and got to the airport, and then the flight became like delayed for 3 hours. So, being the smart business traveler, I said, "All right, I'll just go to United's website. I'll just buy a day pass for their lounge, because all of the food places were totally swamped. I mean, there were
Mm-hmm.
lines, and I'm like, I am not waiting like an hour." And there was no place to sit to eat it. So if I had food, there was no place to go. I mean, all the seats were filled up in the airport. So I bought a day pass online because I know how to do it in the app. I went to the lounge. She goes, "Oh, the lounge is closed because of the delays." I said, "No, it's not." I said, "I just bought a day pass." She goes, "Well, it's invalid for today." I said, "No." I said, "You have two choices. You can let me in the lounge, or you can refund the money. Those are your two choices."
Yeah.
She goes, "All right, just go." Wait, so if it's full, then turn it off on the app so I can't purchase it. The other problem, like you're saying, is call and get. Well, they had no customer service agents in the airport. There was no place to go and get help. They said I had to go to the app and do it. It was a 2 hour wait to try and get help. That's how many people were trying to bang this app to get help. Everybody was stuck in the airport. Anyway, finally got home like, I don't know, 6 hours later. But
Yeah,
uh,
travel can be unfortunately
frustrating.
very frustrating.
It's a test
And
of patience.
it is, and I always recommend travel insurance too,
Yeah.
particularly if
Mm,
I think Disney's a big one, just because if you outlay
sure.
a lot on that, and or if you're going overseas,
Yeah.
and there's policies you can get that will, like, if a
Right.
flight is delayed by a certain amount of time, you can book a flight on a different airline and they'll
Hmm.
reimburse you
Hmm.
for that, and
Yeah.
your food and all of that. So I think that can help somewhat. And we have a number that I share in my program that we call our Insider Southwest number,
Mm,
that we have everyone have it in your phone favorites ready to go, because
yeah.
and call them before everybody else if you can.
Right.
Otherwise, like you said, you're kind of relegated. And
Yeah.
after the fact, you can always ask for
Sure.
credits and things too. Just go to their site and whatever,
Yeah.
fill out their annoying form and
Yeah.
request it.
And I did, and the reply, it was weather, and there was really nothing we can do. Okay.
That
Thanks, man.
that is,
Hmm.
I know, I hear that a lot. And see, Southwest, I mean, sometimes they're going to give you that, but most of the time you get someone friendly who
Hmm.
usually will give you something if you're nicely persistent.
Yeah.
But I find, I just heard a terrible story about American with the same thing.
Hmm.
It was just a person got stranded overnight.
Yeah.
It was weather. It was during the floods, like they were in North
Oh, yeah.
Carolina.
Oh,
There were
yeah.
no hotels because of that. I mean,
Yikes.
just, and they wouldn't. She had to really, really be persistent
Hmm.
for quite a while to get anything out of them.
Yeah. Uh, I found cruising 2 years ago. I promised myself I'd never get on a boat because I thought it was weird. Now I've been 6 times in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Uh, one Norwegian, one Royal, and all the rest Disney. And the other stupid thing I did is past September, I found it an extremely excellent price for Disney concierge service, and that is like ruins you for the rest of your life.
Mm.
You have somebody getting you, putting a drink in your hand or putting food in your hand all day long. I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a problem. So, but do you have any tips for people that like to cruise?
Yeah, I mean, we aren't cruisers. We've done one cruise in our whole life,
Mm,
kind of for the same reason you said before you started
right.
cruising. But lots of my folks do like to cruise, and
Yeah.
certainly, can be an inexpensive way to see a lot of places. It's
Hmm.
nice; you don't have
Yeah.
to unpack every single night. No, that's what I
Right.
really liked about it on our cruise.
Yeah.
But certainly you can learn how to fly to your port and back for
Hmm.
free. You can
Yeah.
learn how to get your hotel stay free the night before, the night after.
Hmm.
And there are actually ways you can pay for your cruise as well on like these flexible cards like Capital One. Now you
Hmm.
have to accumulate a lot to do that, but it's
Right.
possible. It's kind of the same way you use to book Disney park tickets, kind of a thing. Um, but there definitely are ways to do that if that's your
Hmm.
preferred way of
Yeah.
traveling. And I said I'm not big on luxury. I'm not trying to show people luxury travel,
Yeah.
but by having some cards, like if you have one card that has some luxury benefits like the Capital One Venture X,
Hmm.
I think it's the best card if you want to have airport lounge access
Oh yeah.
because its annual fee pays for itself.
Right.
And so that's a way, and they now have their own Capital One lounges, which I haven't been in one yet, but
Hmm.
I have had people be in all of them and they all just say they're amazing. Chase Sapphire has some lounges now. Those are supposed to be really good. So those are some ways, like just by having the right card, that you can up level your experience a little bit. And even you mentioned like the car rentals, how they used
Yeah.
to be. So
Yeah.
like the Capital One comes with Hertz President's Circle, and that is
Sure.
a little bit more like you get to walk to your car, you get
Right.
to pick it and get
Yeah.
right in and go, which is better
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
standing in a long line.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still hurt. That's the only car rental place that I use too. Um, all right. So you talked about your programming system. So where can people find you on the internet? Find more information about your program, sign up, all those kind of things. What's a best place to go get all that?
Yeah, so I think my podcast is probably my best resource to
Okay.
learn more about my system and my approach to things. And that's just Families Fly Free. You can find that in any podcast app. And if you want to learn more about my program specifically, it's a paid membership where I teach you my step-by-step system to always fly your whole family for free. And then we provide personal support with any questions you have. You get a detailed plan specific to your family. And we have a very active community of members and live webinars. That is familiesflyfree.com. And I don't do a ton on social media, but it's Families Fly Free if you want. But I do have a lot of videos on YouTube as well.
All right. Well, thanks. This was all great information, which I'm going to now use with my little
Great.
travel. But please go take the time, go follow Lyn on her YouTube and her podcast. And thank you, Lyn, for coming and giving us all this great information.
Happy to. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks.
The Disney Parks podcast is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company. All Disney parks, attractions, lands, shows, event names, etc. are registered trademarks of the Walt Disney Company.